Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So this week for my Game of Thrones bonus video, there's so much Star Wars stuff happening this week. I'm going to be talking about lightsabers. I figured it'd be good to talk about Valyrian swords. So I'm going to talk a little bit about their history in A Song of Ice and Fire and what they might be doing with them in the future. That is to say, what George R.R. Martin and the writers of the TV show are going to be doing with Valyrian swords. I mean, it's not like they're going to start using them as hammers or anything like that. Like, well, we killed all the White Walkers, so I guess we're just going to use these as large dinner knives or something like that. But I should say, careful for spoilers for everything that's happened on the show so far. And there is a new round of the giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. It's just a $20 Amazon gift card, real simple. So where we're at right now in the narrative, George R.R. Martin has not revealed how Valyrian steel is created. It's still meant to be this very rare resource. We've also learned about obsidian, also called dragon glass, which has the exact same effect on White Walkers. So maybe there is a correlation there. A lot of people want to believe that a critical component in the creation of Valyrian steel, or in the smelting of Valyrian steel, is obsidian, like you added somewhere in the process. Now, that's like an oversimplification. Smelting steel, becoming a mastered sword maker, very long, very complicated process. So I don't think suddenly someone's going to figure out how to make Valyrian steel on the TV show. Like Samuel isn't just going to figure it out, and then a bunch of people are just going to start creating thousands and thousands of swords overnight. It's more likely that if we get our War for the Dawn in Season 8 or whatever season that ends up coming in, the remaining Children of the Forest would just start bringing more shipments of obsidian to the wall. So they just start passing around obsidian daggers. Now we have to talk about obsidian a little bit too, but let's talk about Valyrian steel first. There are several very famous swords that we've heard about in the books and on the TV show. There are even more that are mentioned but never seen. The most famous is Blackfire. That is the ancestral blade of succession of the Targaryen family. It's most commonly known as Aegon the Conqueror's sword, so the added context of, becoming the sword of succession for the Targaryen family really only started happening after he became king of Westeros. Valyrian swords by themselves, incredibly rare, incredibly precious, but you add social context where it's like, okay, the king of Westeros always wielded this one specific sword, then it becomes something even more special. The last known whereabouts were that it was taken by Bittersteel after the Blackfire Rebellion, the first Blackfire Rebellion, and then never seen again. Because the Blackfires created the Golden Company, you could theorize that someone who is still associated with the Golden Company has possession or knows where the sword might be. But the TV show hasn't really done the Golden Company, so if they find Blackfire, the ancestral Targaryen blade, then it's going to be something that Varys tracks down as part of the Targaryen restoration. It would be amazing, I don't expect it, but it would be amazing if they presented Daenerys with the sword before she goes back to Westeros. I've seen a small part of the Jon Snow fandom ask if he would ever wield Blackfire too, like if he's secretly a Targaryen, wouldn't he wield the ancestral Targaryen blade? Well no, he would probably still wield Longclaw. So if you want to fantasize about anybody wielding Blackfire, fantasize about Daenerys. Now as many different styles of sword there are different styles of Valyrian sword. George R. R. Martin describes Blackfire as a hand and a half sword, meaning it's a little bit longer than a bastard sword. Maybe a little bit longer than Oathkeeper, which Brienne is currently wielding. The Mountain would be a good exception to that rule, he wields a sword that's way, way bigger just because he is physically so much larger. Moving down the list, there's Dark Sister. Martin describes that as a long sword, typically wielded by a female. It started with one of Aegon the Conqueror's sister wives and then was passed down eventually to the Blood Raven. Nobody knows if he took it with him when he went to the Wall initially. In case you didn't see the Blood Raven video that I did a couple weeks ago, I theorized that it'd be very funny if Bran were to find Dark Sister just sitting in the root system, somewhere underneath that weirwood. Oh hey, what do you know, very special Valyrian blade just happens to be sitting around here. There's Ned Stark's blade Ice, which was melted down into two different Valyrian swords, including Oathkeeper and Widow's Wail. It's a giant greatsword, but it's supposedly only 400 years old, so it's not as old as some of the other Valyrian blades. Speaking of which, Widow's Wail. I know a lot of people are wondering where this Valyrian blade is because Joffrey died. A lot of people think that it might have been buried with him. George R. R. Martin clarified that Tywin sent it to Casterly Rock to be kept for Tommen to wait till he was ready to wield it. So breathe easy, it did not get buried with Joffrey. The other side of that equation, Oathkeeper, still walking around the north with Brienne of Tarth, killing other would-be kings of Westeros. Next big sword, Bright Roar. This is the ancestral blade of House Lannister. Way before Aegon conquered the Seven Kingdoms, King Tommen II, when the Lannisters could still call themselves kings, lost it when he was questing to Valyria. So presumably the blade is somewhere in the ruins of ancient Valyria. Tyrion's uncle actually went to find it and never came back. Or it was destroyed in the Doom of Valyria. You have to remember that Valyrian swords are not completely indestructible. There's Lady Forlorn, which is a longsword that belonged to House Corbray. That's only mentioned in the Sworn Sword. That's one of the Dunk and Egg stories. Nightfall is the ancestral blade of House Harlaw. Red Rain is the ancestral blade of House Drum. Lamentation, which is the ancestral blade of House Royce. Vigilance is the ancestral blade of House Hightower. Orphan Maker is the ancestral blade of House Roxton. Truth is the ancestral blade of House Rhaegar, which is actually not a Westerosi house, they're from Lys. There are still a couple families in the East, like a couple great wealthy families who had their own Valyrian blades, including this really famous Dothraki called Kago Corpse Killer. He carried this Arak, which is one of the types of weapons that Dothraki favor. Longclaw, we know, is the ancestral blade of House Mormont, which was given to Jon Snow, will probably remain with him. Heartsbane is the ancestral blade of House Tarly. It is still wielded by Randall Tarly, so if we know that they cast him in Season 6, it means we'll probably get to see the sword. And then probably the most famous sword next to Blackfire is actually not a Valyrian sword at all. It is Dawn, the ancestral blade of House Dane, which, unlike Valyrian blades, was not smelted from anything on Earth. It was smelted from a meteor. Now, even though Dawn is not made of the same minerals as Valyrian swords, it still has the same effect. It's every bit as strong as Valyrian steel. Because the blade is passed down to the Sword of the Morning, the person born of House Dane deemed worthy to wield the sword. Since there's no one that exists right now that holds the title, the sword's still presumed to be at Starfall, waiting for someone to come along. So think of it as being like Tommen with Widow's Wail. Now, there is a Dane who is the heir to House Dane in the books, but like Tommen, he is really young, too young to wield the sword. The TV show hasn't done the character, so they could do whatever they want to with the sword. I'm assuming that the TV show would just say that it's still at Starfall too. Now, supposedly there's going to be a Tower of Joy flashback during Season 6. Arthur Dane was there fighting Ned Stark using Dawn while Ned Stark was using ice, so presumably we'll get to see the sword, but it will only be in flashback. So here's my big question for you guys. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite sword from the books or from the TV show? And which one do you want to see them bring on the show that we haven't seen yet? I feel like everybody's waiting behind their computer monitors saying, Dawn, please bring Dawn on the show. That's another question I get a lot too. Like, if Dawn came on the TV show, would Jon Snow wield it? No, he probably would not because he still has Longclaw, and they have the exact same effect. But it's all just speculation, and you have to remember that Winds of Winter isn't out, so we'll probably get some more information about what's going on in A World of Ice and Fire, especially some of the pre-history of the TV show. So hopefully that'll add some more context. But what's going to happen tonight is there's going to be a Mark Hamill lightsaber special on ESPN. I know that sounds really weird. Mark Hamill's like, I'm going to be talking about the history of lightsaber technique, so I'm totally going to be doing a lightsaber video later tonight. The rest of this week is definitely going to be Star Wars heavy in terms of videos for understandable reasons. I mean, this is like Star Wars season. There's very little else that is happening that is not Star Wars. There is some more Deadpool stuff happening. There's a trailer coming for that really soon. There might be some other trailers dropping, but you can just follow me on Twitter and Facebook for updates on when videos are posting. And if there's anything specific you guys want me to do for Game of Thrones, any Game of Thrones bonus videos, just let me know in the comments. Congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, Domingo Pineda. You win a $20 Amazon gift card. Just be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact info. While you guys wait for my next video, in case you haven't seen it, you can click here for the last Game of Thrones Season 6 teaser. Very surprised that they're dropping teasers this early. And you can click here for all my Star Wars videos. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.